Hello and welcome to my first month of Blends Club. I'm so excited and super thankful that you guys have chosen to join me in this new club. I'm hoping that we will learn some new techniques together and be able to kind of hone in our fun coloring skills and use these alcohol markers to the best of our abilities. Today's projects are this cute 8x8 sampler, and I'm going to show you how we color these two pieces and assemble the entire project together, and then also how to color this beautiful card and get the pretty shading and things of the and some shading down here below as well of this cute milk can. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and I'm going to show you what comes in your kit. We'll do the sampler first, so I'll set the card aside. For the sampler, you in your kit should have a piece of Whisper White that's 8x8, as well as a piece of crumb cake that's 7x7. This is going to be your base, which you would then adhere to your sampler. So I adhered it to my sampler, the backing of the shadow box. So this is what I did, and you can just do that with some adhesive. I'm going to move this out of the way here. Okay, so you have your two pieces for the base. You should also have a bag that's going to have all of your little pieces and parts to assemble this project. What we're going to go ahead and do is do the stamping and coloring first, and then we'll assemble all the pieces. Be careful with your bag because there are some tiny pieces inside that you're not going to want to fall out, like rhinestones and little clips and things, okay? So you're going to have two pieces of cardstock. One is going to be 2 inches by 2 inches squared, and the other one's going to be 2 inches by 4 1/4 inches. And that is going to be this piece here and this piece here. Okay, so we're going to stamp those two images. We're going to move our base out of the way. We're going to stamp these two images, and then we're going to do our coloring. Okay? So the most important thing that you're going to want to have on hand when you're using the blends is the Memento black ink. Okay, this is the type of ink that you'll want to use when you're using the blends. Now, for our larger piece of Whisper White cardstock, we're going to do this cute little can, this little watering can, and we're just going to stamp it not at the bottom, but not at the top either, just kind of like so, okay? And then we're going to stamp the flowers and the cotton that go on top. It's a two-piece stamp, two-step stamp, I should say. Make sure it's nice and inked up. And you're just going to line up the bottom of the flowers with the bottom of your can, or the top of your can, I'm sorry, and stamp, okay? Like so. And then the other thing we need to stamp is this pretty flower assortment arrangement here at the top. We also need to stamp some sentiments, but we'll get to that in just a second. So we're going to ink up the stamp in Memento Black. And you're going to stamp this in the center of the 2x2 square, but it's going to go off the edges, and just that's okay. Don't worry about that. So I'm just going to stamp like so. And voila. Okay, so you have your two images that we're going to color. Make sure you give them ink a second to dry. While it's drying, I'm going to grab the other ink colors that we're going to need. We will need Blackberry Bliss and Mint Macaron. Those are the two colors. The two colors that we're going to stamp the sentiments in. So while this ink is drying, we'll go ahead and just stamp those two sentiments. We'll need our bag here. Now there's several pieces of white cardstock, and some of it is for stamping the sentiments and some of it is for scraps that you're going to need. So I believe this piece here, yep. Okay, so this piece measures 2.5 by 1 3/8. 2.5 by 1 3/8 is what we're going to stamp our sentiment, Simply Thankful for You. or simply thankful for all the good times. We're stamping this in Blackberry Bliss. Like so. And voila. Okay. And then we're going to stamp this other sentiment, Happy Harvest Blessings. We're going to stamp it twice. We need Harvest in Blackberry Bliss. I'll do it in this bigger piece. Harvest in Blackberry Bliss. Okay. And then we also need the same stamp set in, the same sentiment in the Mint Macaron. And we need that so that we can cut out Happy and Blessings and Harvest separately and put those on that strip of cardstock. So, where's my chamois? There's my chamois. I'm going to go ahead and clean off my stamp. And I'm going to stamp it again. There we go. Okay. Set that aside. And now our other images should be dry enough. Oh, let's go ahead and just stamp Enjoy as well. We actually do have to do some coloring on this, so we'll stamp that down. So we're going to stamp the circle, the oval, like that, and then we're going to stamp the word Enjoy in the center of it. Okay, and we are going to be coloring that. So that should be it for stamping. Let's go ahead and get into the coloring. I know you guys are dying for that, right? Okay. The blends colors that I chose this month are, I'm missing one. Oh, there it is. Okay. Mint Macaron Light and Dark, Granny Apple Green in Light and Dark, Cajun Craze in Light and Dark, and Blackberry Bliss. Okay. So what I went ahead and did was I decided that I was going to color the vegetation on this this plant here, and I thought this looked like a little artichoke, so I did that in the green. And so what I always like to do is I like to start with the light, and I just give it a base. And depending on what I'm coloring, I'll use either the brush tip or the fine tip. This image, I feel pretty confident that I can use the brush tip, and it does color quicker that way because it covers more ground. So that's going to be my Granny Apple Green. Now I'm going to go back over it with the darker Granny Apple Green, except I'm going to be doing the fine tip. And what I'm doing is I'm going to be shading right along these lines because I'm envisioning that the layers of leaves are going to cause shadows, right? The shadows are going to be next to these lines, okay? And maybe even underneath because there's no sun hitting that. So I always try to envision like where the light is hitting the plant. And then I like to go back over with my light and kind of blend those edges because I don't want there to be like definite lines that are separating the two colors. So just running back over with the light really helps kind of even things out. Now I'm going to use my Blackberry Bliss and I'm going to color this other foliage. You could actually choose, you know, whatever color you would like for the foliage. If you want this to be green as well for these, you know, you think these are leaves and you want them to be green, go right ahead and color them green. I thought they looked pretty at this kind of purplish color. I've seen purple leaves, and so in my mind, this vegetation was purple. And I'm just covering the leaves with the base color. This is the light Blackberry Bliss, in case I didn't say that already. Okay. Okay, so I've got your base. Now again, we're going to go back over with the darker Blackberry Bliss, and we're going to go along the lines and just kind of give it a little bit more definition and then shade where we think maybe the sun is not shining. You know, maybe somewhere in these darker areas underneath the leaves and the bottoms, the creases. You just want to give it some definition. It does help it. It helps make it pop. from the page. It makes it look more realistic, I think. And we're just going to shade. And again, like I said, don't worry so much that it looks really rough, because once you pass back over with the light and blend those lines, it really softens it and makes it look really good. Makes it look like I know what I'm doing. Now there are a couple things I recommend you have when you're using the blends. The first is a color lifter, which is the white blend, and it will actually help correct any issues that you have or anything that you colored that you shouldn't have. Okay, the other thing is, like I said, the Memento black ink, which you're absolutely going to need, because it's the only one that works that doesn't run with the alcohol markers. Okay, so now I have the light mint macaron, and I'm coloring the leaves, these little skinny tiny leaves with the fine tip in light. These ones aren't really going to need much shading because they're tiny. It's going to be kind of hard to shade those. Okay, and then I have our little, I'm trying to think of the name of those things. I can't remember. We have them here in the Tri-Cities. I used to see them when I was little in the ponds and things. I can't remember what they're called, but we're going to color those. I'm using light Cajun Craze. As you guys know, I like to start with the light and go to the dark and then back over with the light. And I'm also going to color these little balls that are sticking out, little berries or whatever they are. Just going to color those with the light. And then sometimes stamps are really great and they give you kind of a clue of where things need to be darker. Like when I see these spotted speckles, I think, oh, this might be where it's supposed to be darker, and maybe that's where it needs to be shaded. So again, I'm just going back over with the light to kind of blend things together a little bit so that I don't have such a defined edge. And voila, there's your plant. Okay, now we're going to do the same thing with our watering pail. Now, the really cool thing about like a metal kind of watering pail is the water's going to the light's going to reflect, okay? So you're going to have, like I have in my example here, you're going to have sections where it's going to be a lot lighter, like the sun is shining, like it's reflecting. To get that effect, you're going to want to do a base. My thing's sliding. So you want to do a base in the light mint macaron. And you're just going to color everything. And just for time's sake, I'm using the brush tip. If that makes you nervous and you feel like you're going to make mistakes, then use the fine tip. The best thing that I love about the blends is that you don't get lines or streaks. You just get this nice solid color. The other thing I would advise that you are careful with is always make sure that you have a mat or something underneath your workspace, because the color does bleed and saturate through the paper and it can leak through to whatever is underneath your project. So make sure you have something underneath for your coloring. And then also the other thing that you'll want to make sure is try to stay away from the lines of the outside edge as much as possible, because the alcohol markers do tend to bleed. They will seep, and so you will get color outside the line sometimes, okay? So just be mindful of those things when you're coloring with these blends. Now, I am going to start on the outside and kind of give it a darker outline. I'm going to imagine that it's probably darker down here at the base, and then probably a little bit darker here, okay? And definitely probably under here where the flowers are covering it. And then I'm just going to assume that this is probably all dark, okay? And the best thing about blends is probably to do everything in layers. You can go over and 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 saturate it with a lot of color. And I'm just lightening that edge. And we'll just keep going. Okay. And if you want more definition, more shading, you can go back over it again, and like I said, and layers over and over. We'll just keep going. We'll just keep adding layers until we're happy with the end result. And your tail can be as light as you want it or as dark as you want it. Okay. And I'm just going over the center again just so that it's kind of a little bit darker. But I'm pretty happy with that. You can see this pail is a lot darker than this one. This one will lighten up a little bit as it dries. But as you can see, the more layers you add, the darker it gets. Okay. Next, I'm going to do these little kind of honeycomb looking images. I'm going to start out with the light again, light Cajun Craze. And I'm just going to color that in. And I'm going to do the stems the same color. And try to imagine when you're coloring where you think that the sun is shining from. Is the sun shining from the right? Is it shining from the left? Is it shining straight on the top? And because the under portion, or the part that's not getting the sun, is going to be shaded. So if the sun is coming from, from the right looking down, then the left side is going to be shaded, right? It's not going to be directly in the sun. The bottom, the sun's usually shining from the top, so the bottom portion is probably not going to be as sunny. Okay. Then I did my leaves in the Granny Apple Green. So just start again with the light. You'll start to notice a theme here with light to dark to light. Okay. And everything with alcohol markers is layers. And it's really good to do it when the alcohol is wet, when the paper is wet, because the colors seem to blend better that way. Okay, so now I'm going to go back over and I'm going to shade in these creases with the leaves, the centers, and maybe a little bit where I think the sun might be hidden on the leaves, maybe underneath. Okay, and then again, one more time with the light, just to soften those edges, just slightly brushing, just to soften those edges and kind of blend everything in. Okay, then I have my light Blackberry Bliss. I'm going to do this little flower here. I don't know if this is supposed to be cotton or wet, but I've been coloring it as if it is a flower. Then I'm going to do these little balls, these little berries. I call them balls, but they're berries probably. Coloring those. And I'm going to leave the cotton white because it's cotton. Oops, I'm going to align a little bit there. That's what the color corrector is for. And then just, shading my flower. Just giving it a little bit of dimension. Okay? You could even add a little bit, if you have it, a little bit of Wink of Stella in the cotton, just for fun. Just, just for some extra glitter. Okay? So that's it for the coloring. The other thing that you're going to want to do, and you can use a circle punch, there's several different things you could do, but you're going to want to round your corners on your Simply Thankful for all the good things. And what you can do is you can just put your corner in a circle punch and just round those corners in. And, obviously I'm not measuring. It's not going to be completely even on all four sides, but it does the job. Okay, and then let's go ahead and fussy cut our sentiments into a couple pieces here. I'm going to cut Harvest out from Blackberry Bliss. And I can cut that a little bit straighter once it's off the paper, but Harvest. There we go. Okay, and then Happy and Blessings from the Mint Macaron. Happy. And blessings. Okay, so there we go. The rest is just garbage. Oh, the other thing we actually have to color, I almost forgot, is our little enjoy word. And I did this in light Cajun Craze. And I'm just going to color in the circle. Can you guys see that? Just color that in. Okay, and you're gonna hate me, but we have to fussy cut this out. And just leave a little bit of a white border around the oval. And believe me, if I can cut it out and make it look half decent, then you can cut it out and make it look half decent. We're just going around the oval, nothing fancy. And just leave a little bit of white around the edge. Okay, so there we go. All right, so let's go ahead and assemble our project now that we have all of the parts and pieces. So you're going to glue your crumb cake to your Whisper White. I'm going to use liquid glue because it gives me a little bit of wiggle room. You can use whatever adhesive you choose. And so we're just going to glue this down like so. Okay. Next step is you're going to get all of your little pieces and parts out of your bag so we can kind of lay things out and picture where they need to go and make sure everything is spaced out. That's my favorite way of doing it. Just gives me peace of mind that I have everything in the right order and direction and everything else. Okay, so we've got this in the corner, this goes in the center, this piece goes here. Okay, and we're just going to try and just space it out. You can measure and mark if you choose, but I tend to believe that people are not going to take a ruler to my project. Therefore, I do not need to take a ruler to my project. But whatever floats your boat. These are 2 by 2 by 2, and it's a 7-inch square. So you could do the math and measure and break it out. So 2, 2, 2, and then, you know, 1/4 inches between. All right, so we've got this little guy here. And this goes right here. Just gives it a little border. And this goes here. This enjoy goes on the circle right here. And our little sentiments go on this little tag. You got to do a little dovetail at the end, so I'm going to just cut a little dovetail. Okay, let's go ahead and put glue behind the back of this and glue it down. This little square goes there. Oop, whoa. Make sure that's centered. Okay, so there's that. And our last piece is up here. All right, so now that we've kind of seen it and pictured it. Oh, I forgot this part. We actually need to color the table, as I'm going to call it. We're turning it into a table in thin air. So let's go ahead and do that. I went ahead and started with my light Blackberry Bliss, and I just kind of drew a line across where I thought the table would be, okay? Just a line. And then we're going to fill it in. I'm going to use my brush tip, and I'm just going to fill in the whole thing. Be really careful around the edges. Okay, so there's our light base. Now, we're going to go back over with our dark, and we're going to shade where we think the sun is, where there's going to be like a shadow. So I just assumed that it was, again, the light was coming from the right side, and just gave it a little bit of shade. Okay, and then I'm going back over with my light to kind of blend those edges. Okay, like so. There we go. And then you have your tabletop. I think it's a kind of crooked here. Straighten that out a little bit. Okay, good enough for me. Okay, so now you have your bottom. I almost missed that part. Can't believe I did that. All right, so across the top here is going to be where I put my burlap, and I have a little knot here, or a little piece of the Blackberry Bliss Nature's Twine, and all I'm going to do is just tie a knot around the center of my burlap. So just wrap it, pull it, and tie a knot like so. Okay, and then you can fray the edges. Like I like to untwist the baker's twine and get a little frilly edge like that. Okay, and then I'm going to take tear and tape, and I'm going to actually put tape on the back of this to help stick the burlap down. Okay, peel the adhesive back off there. Maybe. I apologize for the shadow. I'm trying to do this in the evening without any natural light, so that makes it for fun times. Okay, so I'm putting this over the front, and I'm just going to wrap it around the back and push it down into the adhesive. Okay, doing the same on this side, keeping it tight as you can. And then if you want, you can leave these lengths as long as you want, or you can cut them down. I'm going to cut mine down a little bit. So I'm not using my ribbon scissors, so it's not cutting very well. Come on. Okay, so there, I trimmed it down a little bit. And now we're going to put adhesive on the back of it and glue it down to our base here. And I'm just going to put some liquid glue. You could put this up on dimensionals if you like. All right, so here we go. We're just going to, again, try to keep it so everything is spaced the same distance. And just hold it down. With liquid glue, you just got to give it a minute. Hold it down, give it some love. And make sure it sticks down. Okay, and we'll come back and address that in just a second. Okay, the other thing that we're going to do is we're going to glue all of these pieces together. So we're going to put adhesive on the back of here, on the back of the yellow piece. We're going to glue that to the center of the purple piece. I love this grid purple, it's really cute. Oops, my fingers are getting sticky. Okay, and then we're going to glue this sentiment to the center of this yellow. So I'm going to put the Tombow glue directly on the yellow piece and then glue this down like so. Okay, and then we have inside of your bag, you should have a clip, and you'll also have a little tiny rhinestone. Make sure that those don't fall out of your bag and get lost. And I am going to tie some of this mint macaron Nature's Twine around the clip and tie a little knot. So you just loop it through and tie a knot. This is what I found is the easiest way. Tie a knot, and then you can slide it up to the top of the clip in this little clasp area, okay? And then we're going to need to put this clip over the top and try to open it and put it behind the baker's twine. It's kind of tough to do. You can kind of force it though. I say that and now I can't do it. Come on. Open sesame. It's not wanting to go in. Okay, well, we're gonna get it as far as we can and call it good from there because I cannot get it to go any further. I'm going to trim off the extra and open it to fray, like so. And then we're going to glue this down. I'm going to use liquid glue again. You can also use fast fuse or tear and tape, anything strong. You want it to stay and not go anywhere. So we'll bring our project back in here and glue this down like so. Okay, and just give it a nice little love. I like this little ribbon here, it's so cute. Okay, now we can start kind of gluing some of our next pieces together. Let's go ahead and put our little enjoy in the center of our circle. Okay, and then what I think I'm going to do is actually just put adhesive on the back of the circle and then glue the circle down to the chicken wire to kind of anchor it. I just want to make sure the chicken wire is straight and the enjoy is straight, and everything will just glue down together like so. And then we can glue this piece on. Right about there. Just making sure we have enough space between all of our pieces. Okay, now this piece goes, this little purple square goes in front of the yellow, and then that is what your little rhinestone is for. Little rhinestone is for the center of that square. So get that out of the bag. Put the, oh, rhinestone went jumping. Put the rhinestone in the center of the square. Just need a little bling. And then we'll glue our square down. Right about there. And call it good. Okay, let's go ahead and glue down our that's the tin tile folding. I embossed it with a tin tile embossing folder on a piece of silver foil, which I think is just so pretty. It definitely deserves to be the center of the attention here, the center of the card or of the sampler. Let's go ahead and glue down our crumb cake. See how we're kind of just, you know, working our way like a puzzle through the squares? And hopefully we'll finish with a pretty straight sampler. I'm putting adhesive on our little banner that I cut. I'm going to put it here on the center of my square. Okay, and then I'm going to glue my sentiments here. So happy goes first. And I'm just going to kind of put it crooked. I don't want it all to be straight. So happy, and then harvest. Like so, and then blessings down at the bottom. Voila, all done with that. Okay, let's go ahead and glue down our flowers that we colored. Pretty crazy how this comes together so simple, right? It looks super complicated, but it actually comes together pretty nicely. And then our last piece here is this last corner square, which I think is so cute with these white pumpkins and the mint macaron background. I just really like this a lot. And you can see the pumpkins are Cajun crazed. So all these colors just tie in really beautifully with the set. Okay, the last is a bow. And what I did is I actually took my braided linen apart so that I can get many little fibers to give it that kind of, I don't want to say antique type of bow, but just kind of a frayed bow. And it does take some time to break down the ribbon and pull it apart because it is braided. So I'm like unbraiding the ribbon. You can use your piercing tool to kind of push your fingers or push through the fibers to open them up. It does take a little bit of time though. I'm going to use my scissors and see if I can push through and unbraid this ribbon a little bit faster. So you see, you're just going to work it and separate those individual threads. Now you could take this ribbon apart and use each thread individually, or like me, I'm just pulling them apart, but I'm going to keep them together if I don't get it into a big old knot. And I'm going to tie a bow with it. And you might say, this is too much work, and just tie a bow as is, and that would still be gorgeous. It's completely up to you and the patience that you have for this project. I think I have enough, but let me just fray it just a slight bit more. Like, okay, I think I have enough. So let's go ahead and tie a bow. And you just fluff up the sides and trim the edges. I'm just going to trim this so it's all even length, and we're going to open the braid up on this side. There we go. And you have a little, I think it looks like a farmhouse ribbon, a little bow. Okay, like kind of an antique-y bow. And you're going to put that in the corner there. So I'm going to get a glue dot and put it in the corner, like so. All right, that's it for this. Cute, right? And your coloring, I'm sure, looks absolutely fabulous. I'm sure you're catching up on this and getting the hang of it real quick. All right, the other project that you have in your bag is your card. Let's go ahead and bring the card back in here so you can see it real quick. Remember that? And you should have some pieces and parts here. You should have a piece of mint macaron that's been embossed and a piece of the Country Lane Designer Series paper. And we're going to use the polka dot side. Go ahead and use your adhesive and put down those two pieces. You should also have a piece of Whisper White cardstock that measures 2 1/4 by 4 1/4. I'm just going to be putting this down. This piece is 2 inches by 5 1/4. And so they will fit, they both will fit on your piece, on your card base, side by side, and there's a little gap in between the two, and it is intentional. Okay, you also have a little bow that I've already tied for you. You're welcome. Okay, so let's go ahead and stamp our milk can and our flowers. Again, it's a 2-step stamp. So stamp your milk can here at the bottom, and then stamp your flowers that have the cotton on them on top. Just line that up as best you can and stamp. Okay, now we're going to color. So, oh, we need to stamp our little circle. Where's our circle at? There it is. Let's stamp our circle in the center of our can. And then, oh, I touched it in the inside, darn it. Okay, and then we're gonna stamp thanks in the center there. All right, now we can color. So what I did was I took my light Blackberry Bliss and I colored my milk can Blackberry Bliss. Is that crazy? I thought it was cute. I didn't think it was crazy at all. It's definitely not a traditional milk can color, but I thought it was fun. Now, do you guys notice these lines here? They always, I feel like it's telling me that it should be shaded in those areas. It's like I try to read the stamp and let it tell me where it thinks the shading should happen. I'm going to use my brush tip to get the coloring done a little bit faster. And I love that there are no lines. It's absolutely fabulous. You don't have those hideous marker lines. Everything just blends together, just as the names describe it. All right, it's time to go in with our darker shade, and we're going to shade where we think there might be natural shadows, you know, like underneath the milk can. Definitely back behind here. And probably the handle. Probably underneath the handle here. And probably under this little lip. So we're just going to put some shade here, and for some reason I feel like there's more shadow on this side of the can. Okay, or maybe even, all right, so let's go ahead and go back over it with the light and just kind of blend in those edges. We're just kind of working our way around. It's almost like we're trapping it. So we've got our shade there. Okay. And like I said, if you want to go back over, if you want it to be darker in places, you can just keep adding layer upon layer of ink and continue to blend the colors. Okay. And you can even, if you feel like you made it too dark, you can take your color corrector, or your color lifter, I should say. Let me grab mine. color lifter with you. And you can even go back over where you think it should be lighter. You know, like here I made a boo-boo. You can fix that. Push that color back over. So you can actually make it lighter in the areas that, you know, maybe you want the milk can to be shiny there. I made it too light, so I'm going to go back over. Okay, so there you can just keep kind of playing with the shading of it a little bit until you get to the colors that you want. I have really saturated my paper. And then you're going to take your mint macaron. I'm doing the light. I'm going to color the thanks. And do the light there. And then I'm going to do I'm actually going to just take the darker of the mint macaron, and I'm just going to start shading around the can as if there was some shade happening. Okay. And, you know, we are doing coloring, so no two portraits, I guess you could call them, are going to be the same. I can tell you that. Both of my cans look a little bit different, but I like them both. Like, oh, hit the camera. You can see this can is a little bit darker than this one, but still pretty. I like it. All right, and then we're going to color our little honeycomb. Again, I did the Cajun Craze. My camera is still shaking, darn it. Stay still. Okay, so we've got that. We can do a little bit of shading down at the bottom. Put the stem colors here and just shade around that. And then we're going to do our leaves in the Granny Apple Green. I'm going to do light and then dark and then light again. Okay, I'm going to go back over with the dark. Like so. And then shade. Like that. And then we're going to do our lovely little flower here, which the more I look at it now, I think it's cotton, but it's okay. And we're just going to do these little dots. Little berries. I have to be really careful because I'm using my brush tip. Okay, and there we go. And then we're going to use dimensionals to pop it up and put it in the center of our card. Put one more in the center. So this is just kind of the basics, you know, just of shading. You know, thinking of where the sun is going to be shining from. It gives it layers, it gives it dimension. And when you give it some shadow underneath, it doesn't look like it's floating in midair. It actually looks like it's grounded. It's actually on something, which makes a big difference. So you're going to put, I just put mine up on dimensionals and put that on there. And then I have my bow, which I'll put on with a glue dot. And then you have this beautiful thank you card. And you can be like, yep, I colored that. And be really proud of it. Because it's going to be gorgeous. I went really dark on this one. But as you can see, the more you put color, the darker it gets. This one, I really kind of stayed out of that. I only did the first layer. This one, I kind of went over, and then I did the color corrector to try and show you guys, and then went back over it. So it got really dark. But it's still kind of a cool effect. You could even, as a matter of fact, I'm going to do that. Put Wink of Stella on your can and make your can shiny. That's cool. Ooh, I like that. So you can do that with the Wink of Stella too. Bet you didn't think Wink of Stella was going to be part of these projects. I try to add a little glitter into everything I do. All right, you guys. Well, I hope you enjoyed kind of the basics of blends. Just kind of, you know, working from the outside going in, paying attention to shadows and shading. And so that is just kind of the basics of blends. I tell you that blends make anybody look like they're an expert in coloring, and it makes coloring so much fun once you've figured them out. So next month we'll play some more and hopefully learn a couple more techniques that you can use, okay? Thank you guys so much for participating in my first month. I hope you guys are enjoying it.